From European leaders concerned over his threats to annex Greenland. The message from French President Emmanuel Macron: I do not understand what you are doing on Greenland. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte tells Trump he is committed to finding a way forward on Greenland. In the meantime, Trump gets a face-to-face with the two leaders tomorrow in Davos for the World Economic Forum. He and his team expressing optimism and urging leaders to calm down in the face of his threats.
I don't think they're going to push back too much. Look, we have to have it. They have to have this done. They can't protect it.
We've always been able to work through our differences calmly as friends. We will continue to do that. I want to assure you this morning that that is still the case.
Calm down the hysteria, take a deep breath.
But Denmark has a strong warning for the president.
We will, of course, defend Greenland. If there is an invasion by American troops, it would be a war, and we would be fighting against each other. We know the Americans are stronger than us, and you have a much stronger military than ours, but it is our duty to defend our land and our people.
I turn out for me. And whoa. Whoa. Can you bring your feet closer? Yeah, good thing you're here from your shoes. And then turn out for me.
Joining me now in the group chat, Zach Wolf, CNN politics senior writer, Chuck Rocha, Democratic strategist and former senior advisor to the Bernie Sanders presidential campaigns, and Kristen Soltis Anderson, CNN political commentator and Republican strategist and pollster. So a couple developments this morning. I believe that Mike Johnson actually addressed the UK Parliament, vowing to calm tensions. I want to play this for you because he also went on Nigel Farage's show and was asked directly about the pursuit of Greenland and what Trump is doing. And Farage is, of course, known as being an ally of Trump. So here's what happened.
This is the biggest fracture in our relationship between our two countries since Suez in 1956. This is serious. And you're here about to speak before Parliament. I mean, is there nothing that can be done here?
Well, I'm here to encourage our friends and calm the situation. Look, I think we're going to get beyond this little rift. I don't think it's a threat to NATO or to this special relationship that we have in the long run.
Which kind of flies against these texts that have been released. What did you notice in the text?
Well, first of all, Mike Johnson, little rift, he sounds completely different than the president on
right.
this.
And so does Besson.
Yeah, I mean, they are saying something completely different. In those text messages, I thought it was interesting. Why would Trump release these? They were showing the little rift that Mike Johnson was talking about. They also kind of showed, and maybe this is what he was trying to do, the sort of deference that the world leaders are showing him. Macron, let's do dinner on Thursday and talk this out, kind of a thing. So Trump is showing that they're still being nice to him and coming to him. But that was a head scratcher. Like,
yeah,
what is he at?
Well, it shows them, I think, Macron, who actually has spoken quite strongly, saying like, hey, maybe Europe should use its own economic nuclear option to kind of go after the U.S. What do you guys see in how this is playing out now that they've actually landed in Europe and actually have to have these conversations face to face, Kristen?
I mean, to me, it is baffling on a number of levels. It's deeply unpopular. It's even not that popular with Trump's own base, the idea of engaging in military activity in Greenland. But what it really is, I think, is Donald Trump, his real estate guy, I want to acquire territory and assets, is coming out in full force. I think he thinks that these like tough mafia-style tactics are how you negotiate a better deal. But I'm really glad to see that at least right now, I mean, this in some ways feels a little reminiscent of Trump's first term, when he would say and do things and there were like a number of adults in the room that would be like, let's maybe not do that. We actually haven't seen as much of that this term.
The adults, or?
Well, the attempt from within his own party, his own cabinet to try to constrain or contain him. And that's what this feels like. They are realizing this one is way too far.
And the American electorate coming up less than a year from the midterms are kind of where Macron is. They kind of would understand Venezuela. Dictator seems bad. Taking rid of a dictator seems okay, maybe. Iran seems bad. Seems Iran has done bad things before. But Greenland?
Yeah,
that's where the American public is.
The CNN polling was showing that independents, something like 82%, oppose the Greenland conversation.
And we're not talking about gas and groceries and regular things as we move towards the summer.
I want to play one more thing for you. Don Bacon, who's been on a roll since, he's in a YOLO situation, he was saying that he is, of course, very against this. And here's how far he went.
One way or the other way, whether it's even Republican control or if it's Democrat control after November, I think it would lead to impeachment. I think it's invading ally, to me, is a high crime and misdemeanor. And we have a treaty. We have the NATO agreement and it would be basically severing this whole agreement and invading an ally, a democracy. It's immoral. It's wrong.
I guess he's just saying it on the way out.
I just want to say something quick before folks give commentary on this so everybody at home understands who Don Bacon is. There's only 3 congressional races in America that a Republican currently occupies that Kamala Harris won, and this guy's in one of them, and he's retiring.
Joining us now live from Paris is CNN senior international correspondent Melissa Bell. Melissa, give us a sense of what the dialogue appears to be between Trump and Macron. It seems that that relationship is souring.
That's right. First of all, the idea of that meeting tomorrow in Davos, Rahel, of the American president with a number of those European leaders involved in the defense of Greenland promises to be pretty frosty. When you love to be in a corner of that room to hear the tone, because in the meantime, there is no suggestion that either side is backing down of the question of the future of Greenland, nor of the question of tariffs and retaliatory tariffs on the part of the Europeans. Instead, what you've had is this war of words this morning between the French and American presidents. Long gone are the days of the bromance. It seems it isn't simply on the question of Greenland and the tariffs and the countermeasures being prepared by Europe, but on the question of the Council for Peace, that you'll remember President Trump sent invitations out to 60 or so world leaders over the course of the weekend to try and oversee the reconstruction of Gaza, but in a sort of enlarged format, that it would see it sort of rival the UN in terms of its ability to try and ensure peace in different parts of the world. We understand that the French president, amongst others, have declined the invitation to join this Board of Peace, an invitation, by the way, also extended to the Russian president. In response to that, you heard the American president threaten the French with 200% tariffs on their wines and champagne. So no suggestion that these threats of tariffs being used as a tool for international diplomacy is going anywhere, nor indeed that you can expect the European response to be anything other than frosty by the time the leaders meet tomorrow in Davos. On the question of Greenland, what we're seeing is a reinforcement of troops on the part of the Danes, largely symbolic, but certainly as a strong signal to Washington that Europeans intend to stand firm on the future of the Arctic island. And in terms of those retaliatory tariffs, we'll see European leaders meet here in Brussels on Thursday to discuss the transatlantic relationship and its souring nature, even as they consider the weight of their countermeasures. We understand also that President Macron had extended the American president an invitation for a G7 summit here in Paris on Thursday as well. So ratcheted up have these tensions become in the hope, and that was the message of the sense of the message that Emmanuel Macron sent to the American president overnight, then published by President Trump, the idea that on Greenland there could be no agreement, but that on a number of other issues there was the possibility to work together, and that dialogue was essential even as this tension continues to mount. Rahel.
President Trump has fired off more social media posts asserting his desire to take over Greenland as he prepares to meet European leaders in Switzerland. He marks the one-year anniversary of his return to the White House with a barrage of comments on Truth Social. Well, there's plenty to worry European and world leaders, not least this image that possibly sums up his expansionist vision for America. The AI-generated image that he posted on Truth Social shows the president planting the US flag on Greenland. While this one, also generated by AI, shows European leaders in the Oval Office and President Trump revealing a map that shows Greenland, Venezuela and Canada as parts of the United States. And if all that wasn't concerning enough for Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, in another Truth Social post, President Trump has called the UK's decision to hand the Chagos Islands to Mauritius as an act of great stupidity. Well, the United States has a military base on one of the islands, Diego Garcia, and Mr. Trump said that the Prime Minister was being weak in abiding by a ruling by the UN's highest court that British occupation of the territory was illegal. Mr. Trump's administration had supported the transfer less than 9 months ago. And in just the last few moments, the government here has issued its response, saying that the UK will never compromise on our national security, adding that the deal it reached secures the operation of the joint US-UK military base on Diego Garcia for generations. Well, more on that in a moment. So, as we said, President Trump has doubled down on his threats of tariffs unless European leaders agree to the US taking over Greenland. Here he is last night.
Well, I don't think they're going to push back too much. Look, we have to have it. They have to have this done. They can't protect it. Denmark, they're wonderful people. And I know the leaders are very good people, but they don't even go there. And, you know, because the boat went there 500 years ago and then left, that doesn't give you title to property.
Donald Trump reiterating his concern over the Greenlands, issuing those tariffs in response. The Netherlands are among the cohort of EU member states who, along with the UK, are being targeted by those tariffs. The Dutch Foreign Minister, David van Wiel, joins us from Davos. We are hoping to speak to him. He is in Davos, but at the moment we're just struggling to get the line up. But like I say, the Netherlands are one of those countries that Donald Trump is targeting. A number of EU countries, including France and Germany,
Germany, and of course also the UK. Well, Robert Moran is partner at the Brunswick Group. He's a former Republican pollster and strategist. He is discussing the likelihood of Donald Trump reducing his demand when it comes to Greenland at the World Economic Forum.
The president has a traditional bargaining strategy where he makes a big demand and then backs off of it and then settles for something less or settles for something else that he wanted. It's interesting. He's actually the fourth U.S. president to attempt to purchase or somehow gain control of Greenland. So it was Andrew Johnson, then William Howard Taft, then Harry S. Truman, and now Donald Trump. And they've wanted it for different reasons and attempted to buy it most recently with Harry Truman offering $100 million to Denmark back in 1946. So this is a longer arc of history in the making here, but certainly with a new flair for the current president. There's a bigger question here. You know, there's the acronym TACO, Trump always chickens out, that people in America have been using now. And the question is, you know, will he back off of that? I suspect he will. And I suspect the fallback is really just territorial control for national security. And so you would achieve that by simply having more military-based presence there. And so I think that's the end goal. But who knows? Perhaps he'll make an offer that's so much money that Denmark might consider.
Well, of course, we'll be bringing you reaction throughout the day, and we are hoping to speak to the Dutch foreign minister. He's joining us from Davos imminently. But as we know, the White House has said that the president is confident that Greenlanders would be better served if protected by the United States from modern threats in the Arctic region. Paul Adams now looks at why Greenland is so strategically important.
It's a vast island of ice, home to just 57,000 people. So why does Greenland matter? Sitting between North America and Russia, Greenland's strategic significance has long been recognized. During the Cold War, the US had bases here. There were 10,000 military personnel at Batuvik. Now there are only around 150 people left. But Donald Trump says today's threats mean America needs to control Greenland. One reason is this. It's at the northern end of a key naval choke point known as the Greenland-Iceland-UK Gap. Russian submarines heading into the North Atlantic have to come this way. For a president intent on dominating the Western Hemisphere, Greenland represents a kind of gateway. And that's key. He's determined to keep rivals out of his backyard. Just look at his latest national security strategy. The United States must be preeminent in the Western Hemisphere as a condition of our security and prosperity. That doctrine was on full display just over 2 weeks ago when American forces attacked the Venezuelan capital and arrested the country's president. But if it's vital for the US to keep enemies away from Greenland, why can't NATO handle it? After all, it is the North Atlantic Alliance. Donald Trump says Denmark isn't doing enough. And the White House wasn't impressed last week by the arrival of a handful of troops from some of NATO's European members.
Countries have to have ownership. And you defend ownership, you don't defend leases. And we'll have to defend Greenland.
The office of president. From his second inauguration speech onwards, Donald Trump has spoken about expanding America's influence and its territory. Now he says the world will not be secure unless America has complete and total control of Greenland. Paul Adams, BBC News.
So that is why Greenland is so strategically important. And we're expecting Donald Trump at Davos in the next few days. He's going to be giving a speech there on Wednesday. We're expecting him to say and reiterate to European leaders who are gathering there that the US have to have Greenland. And we also showed you those social media posts. Actually, I can also tell you that he also shared a message apparently from Emmanuel Macron, the French president, when he is asking the US president, I do not understand what you are doing on Greenland. So arguably undermining the French leader because he is sharing those what arguably should be private messages very, very publicly. And we're just hearing that Greenland's political leaders are saying that we would like to emphasize once again our desire for the US's disregard for our country to end. We do not want to be Americans. We do not want to be Danes. We want to be Greenlanders. That was sent a joint statement from Greenland's party leaders, including opposition leaders. We stand together as a people. That line just dropping. We know that, of course, when it comes to some form of autonomy over Greenland, they have to discuss it with Denmark first, because Greenland is a semi-autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark. An awful lot to discuss. Let's cross over to Westminster. Our chief political correspondent, Henry Zeffman, joins us now. Henry, the president has been somewhat busy overnight with his Truth Social post. We're going to come to the Chagos Islands in just a moment, but obviously when it comes to
I don't know how much coverage you've seen or read today of Donald Trump's ludicrous comments about the so-called Chagos Island deals. It's very unpopular with the usual sort of ignorant racists all over Twitter who don't understand anything or follow the facts or events. But you'd have thought on this occasion they might have actually double-checked what Donald Trump had to say about it at the time, or indeed what his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, had to say about it all those many, many moons ago in... I don't like doing that, hashtag checks notes or whatever it is. But May of 2025, May the 22nd, 2025. So just lest you are confused about what is going on, Donald Trump has made his enmity towards Europe and the United Kingdom crystal clear. His designs upon sovereign European territory are now visible from space. You either abandon your pathetic, mealy-mouthed support for the man, or you erect ever more ludicrous facades of fraudulence and stupidity in order to mask your own sense of humiliation and shame at having backed such an obvious wrong-'un. And, of course, having been so obnoxious and so rude to the people who were pointing out what was, to almost everybody honest, sensible and informed, blindingly obvious. So what he has done today is essentially hand weapons to useful idiots on this side of the Atlantic and say, please throw these at your own Prime Minister. Which means...
Over the weekend, Trump announced an additional 10% tariff on 8 European countries: France, Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, Sweden and Finland, who are apparently getting in the way of his ongoing campaign to acquire Greenland. This was a dramatic escalation in the ongoing transatlantic tiff over the territory. But you'd have been forgiven for expecting a relatively timid response from Europe, given that, well, European leaders have spent the past year or so bending over backwards to accommodate Trump. However, the European reaction has, so far, been surprisingly muscular. Denmark's NATO allies have deployed troops to Greenland. The Commission has dusted off the retaliatory tariffs it prepared during trade negotiations last year, and French President Emmanuel Macron is even doing the rounds, trying to convince his European counterparts to use the EU's so-called trade bazooka. So, in this video, we're going to take a look at Europe's surprisingly muscular response to Trump's Greenland threats, what explains this apparent hardening, and what might happen next.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to the programme. We start with breaking news. In just the last few moments, President Trump has launched an attack on the UK over the decision to hand the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. In a post just moments ago on Truth Social, the President called the decision an act of great stupidity.
Now, we should just pause and take a look at the whole statement, because this is pretty astonishing stuff, I have to say. He says, shockingly, our brilliant, in quotes, NATO ally, the United Kingdom, is currently planning to give away the island of Diego Garcia, the site of a vital US military base, to Mauritius, and to do so in capitals for no reason whatsoever. There's no doubt that China and Russia have noticed this act of total weakness.
These are international powers who only recognise strength, which is why the United States of America, under my leadership, is now, after only 1 year, respected like never before. The UK giving away extremely important land is an act of great stupidity, capitalised, and is another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired.
He goes on to say, Denmark and its European allies have to do the right thing. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And then he signs it off, President Donald J. Trump.
Well, let's bring in Mark Stone, who's able to join us on this. Mark, thanks so much for joining us at 2 a.m. there. I mean, this was as pointed as you could get from the US president to the UK, 24 hours or 20 hours after Keir Starmer ultimately tried to strike a conciliatory tone.
Yeah, and many months after the British thought that this issue was done and dusted. I mean, Diego Garcia is part of the Chagos Islands, and mid-year last year, the United Kingdom made a controversial decision, but a decision nonetheless, to hand sovereignty of the Chagos Islands back to Mauritius, and that, of course, included Diego Garcia. Now, the reason that the president the reason that America in general over the past year has been exercised about this is because Diego Garcia is a very important, strategically important military base for the United States, as it is for the United Kingdom. But as part of the deal to hand sovereignty back to Mauritius, a 99-year lease was put in place for Diego Garcia precisely so that the Americans and the British would be able still to operate there and effectively to run it for themselves. So that's the first point. But the second point is all this was done and dusted. And mid-year last year, I think it was May last year, it was something the Americans were really worried, the Brits were really worried about. Would the Americans have a problem with the whole issue of Diego Garcia and the Chagos? And mid-year last year, Trump was president, there was no problem. And yet suddenly, and like the way you read that, and I'm only just reading it now as we speak as well, the sort of vibe and the tone of Trump's statement, which was, 15 minutes ago he released this, almost is as if he's only just discovered that this is happening. It's extraordinary. But look, Sophie Wilf, the broader point is that, I was saying a day ago that it feels as though the wheels are truly coming off the transatlantic alliance, whether that be with the UK or with the European Union. But for the UK, the special relationship, I mean, it's in a really bad way right now. And remember that Keir Starmer, he's worked so hard and has had some success, no question, at trying to be the Trump whisperer, trying to be the guy who is able to be almost the bridge from Europe to America under Trump, to try and work out what on earth is going on. Right now, that feels like a very tricky place that Keir Starmer is in.
Mark, as to the timing of this, as you said, with particularly the fact that Chagos was sort of done and dusted ages ago, he's linked it to Greenland in his post. He's about to go to Davos, where he'll meet European leaders, interestingly not Keir Starmer. We know he's a big negotiator, and laying the groundwork for what he might say there. But it's pretty clear in recent days he is not backing down on Greenland.
He's not. I mean, I was in the studio with you. It was exactly a week ago, I think, just over a week ago, and you asked me that same question: is he serious? And I said yes, he is. Look, he is absolutely serious about his desire to own Greenland, for Greenland to be part of America, and that's the tricky thing. Look, I was talking to Danish diplomats here in Washington late last week, and while they were somewhat encouraged by the meeting that they had with J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, in that things didn't spiral further, it was still clear to them. And actually, it's worth pointing out that J.D. Vance was the person in the meeting with the Danish Foreign Minister last week who talked about or raised the idea of finding some common ground. So that was encouraging from the Danes. But what they also recognised from that meeting is that Trump has a particular position, and that is to own Greenland. So they agreed to disagree. But at that point last week, they expected that maybe there would be room for negotiation and some middle ground could be found. I think those underneath Trump, some underneath Trump, maybe not Marco Rubio, maybe not J.D. Vance, but some underneath Trump do believe that this Greenland thing is a distraction, that it should go away, and that maybe it will go back into the long grass. But from everything that Donald Trump himself has said over the past 48, 72 hours, it seems absolutely clear this is the thing he really, really wants at the moment, trying to find some compromise, trying to find some off-ramp to allow Donald Trump to feel like he's won, that he's got something. I think he's going to be really, really important in Davos at those meetings. And
Big week in Davos, an awful lot going on the world stage, as we were just saying. Lots of world leaders are going there. It's the first full day of the World Economic Forum. One person who's not going to be there, though, is Keir Starmer.
For now, at least. Let's get out, because Paul Cusso's there for us and can speak to someone with a great perspective on what is or isn't going through the president's head at the moment. Paul, over to you.
Yeah, that's the key question, Wilf, here in Davos. Whatever the plan was for this week, they were always looking forward to Donald Trump arriving, but whatever the agenda was, he has upended with these threats to levy tariffs on some of the US's closest historic allies. That will be the focus of attention here, both publicly and privately. We have some of the major European players, not Sir Keir Starmer, but the President of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, will be giving a speech mid-morning here, where publicly at least, you can set out where the European Commission is thinking is at on what retaliation might look like and how they want to handle this incredibly tricky diplomatic moment. Emmanuel Macron, the French president, will speak after her. Of course, some of his direct negotiations with Donald Trump have been published by the President of the United States this morning, remarkably, although perhaps not so remarkable for this president, on his Truth Social account. Details of private conversations. Again, we'll hear President Macron publicly, but all of them will be trying to second guess what the President of the US is thinking as he prepares to arrive here. One man who will have a better sense than most is Anthony Scaramucci. Many of you will know, worked for the President briefly, has been a very keen critic of him. Anthony, what is going on right now with this President's move?
He's a reality television producer, and so you create conflict, you create drama, some level of histrionics, and then you have a climactic situation where it goes away. And so I think that's going to happen. I think people are going to be surprised by him this week, where if you remember the way he treated Mayor Mondani when he entered the Oval Office, I think it's going to be a little bit of that. You'll probably see a Trump charm offensive, primarily because nobody's expecting that. And so that's sort of the reflexive contrarianism that's part of his nature.
If we go back to the start of this, when you saw tariffs as the weapon here and Greenland as the prize, did you see this as a really serious moment, or do you think this is the start of a negotiation?
I mean, listen, I don't see it as a serious moment. I mean, it would be a cataclysmic thing to do, and I've met with several of the congressional leaders here who are dead set against it, and so it's more of a positional bargaining thing for him, but it's also he wants your eyes and ears on him. And so that's really what it is more than anything else.
One thing that strikes me this morning is the timing of this latest fusillade of Truth Social posts, sharing Macron's messages, a message to the...
Rutte, the NATO Chair, earlier in the year.
It doesn't feel coincidental. It's the moment everyone's waking up here and checking their phones and devices. This is more choreographed than perhaps he would like us to think.
Of course, and also he wants to put everybody on guard. He wants everybody, anything that you would expect from a traditional president, he'll do the exact opposite. And so
For the next week, this tiny church high in the Swiss Alps is set to become the centre of world politics. Why? Because Donald J. Trump is coming to Davos again and has decided this will be home away from home. They're calling it, as you can see, USA House. The banners celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. But the 47th president seems at times to reject the principles on which the United States was founded, of accountability to the people, of international law. At the World Economic Forum here in Davos, President Trump will come face to face with many of the heads of state who thought they were America's allies, but now feel they're being treated like the enemy. Alongside the US president, there are nearly 65 heads of state expected, including France's Emmanuel Macron, Germany's Friedrich Merz, Canada's Mark Carney, and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. It's going to be interesting. Nearly 850 chief executives are on their way here too, in order to discuss how to tackle the world's most pressing challenges. There will be delegations from Apple, from Meta, from Google, Nvidia, all the major global banks like JP Morgan, and the oil and gas companies, including BP and Shell. But top of the bill and centre stage is Donald J. Trump, who introduces himself in his biography and describes himself as a champion of economic growth through tax cuts and deregulation, and what he calls the reinvigoration of communities affected by globalisation.
Tariffs. My favorite word, tariffs, which for many decades have been used successfully by other countries against us. And that's why they're coming home to the USA in record numbers. There has never, frankly, been anything like it.
The World Economic Forum was founded on the belief that when countries, companies and people become more connected, wealth and opportunity is created. Trump, by contrast, is an economic nationalist. He believes in America first and argues that globalization has taken jobs, wealth and power away from the United States. He is on a mission to get all of those things back. Trump dislikes what Davos stands for, but he knows the event offers a huge global stage. He's here to challenge the agenda, not to endorse it, and to sell America as a place to do business.
Donald J. Trump.
This is going to be great television, I will say that. You don't have the cards right now. Many points were agreed to. Thank you very much, Vladimir. Indonesia, Malaysia.
The longest federal government shutdown.
The bill is passed. Came into our country illegally. We're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back.
I'm not the only one who
This took 3,000 years. Moment for America. They've been after this guy for years and years. The greatest were a spectacular civilization, fair and reciprocal. Never bend and never yield. I love this country. America is back.
It's been an extraordinary 12 months. So much, so fast, so easy to miss the significance of moments that we're all living through. Easy, actually, to normalize it all. And so, a year since his inauguration, let's take stock of this Trump presidency. Pause, reflect, project. Where does all this take America and the rest of us? America first. That was the mantra. And the interpretation was that would mean America only. That America under Trump would be isolationist, inward-looking, influencing less, interfering less beyond its shores.
This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have.
The expectation was that the golden age he promised was going to be all about the home front.
So 325.
The economy.
You were laid off.
Jobs. Industry. Well, how incomplete that analysis was. And that's the first strand here. America's place in the world.
We go from left to the right.
Because President Trump has felt more like Emperor Trump, and he'd have it no other way. It's all about spheres of influence, and the Western one, well, Team Trump is bagging that for themselves.
The Western Hemisphere is right now a much safer place to be.
The Western Hemisphere?
In our own hemisphere.
And so the minerals from Greenland.
We need Greenland for national security.
The oil from Venezuela.
We are going to run the country.
And so on. First dibs for America.
So there will be an operation by the U.S.
It sounds good to me.
Forget traditional values, forget principles, conventions, institutions, forget international law.
I don't think that the European Union gets to determine what international law is. They certainly don't get to determine is how the United States defends its national security.
There is, I think, a fundamental takeaway here. The old America was, of course, about self-interest, yes, but it was kind of combined with the values of democracy, human rights, and the general sense that the Western world is better together. Trump has changed this. Trump's America is about power, natural resources, dominance, deals to put America first. And if that doesn't work, then it's about invasion and plundering. It's a 19th century imperialist outlook, but in the 21st century. So we're kind of trying to take stock of a fire hose year of news.
And I wanted to get your sense, your perspective.
A global perspective on how Trump has changed America, changed the world.
Whether it's the tough guys that he looks at in the Middle East that he deals with and shows respect for, or whether it's Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping, we know that, frankly, he has respect for these autocrats. What do the Europeans have? The Europeans say they have their values. And in an America of today, does that count for anything?
Enjoy 50% off Magnet Kitchen cabinets and bring your kitchen vision closer today. Search Magnet Kitchens now.
The paradox, of course, is that at the same time that he's upending the world order, undermining old allies, he's also trying to drive through peace plans. Gaza.
This took 3,000 years.
Ukraine.
To get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up, too.
And beyond.
It's going to hold up.
Beyond the noise generated by President Trump, behind the bombastic rhetoric, so often he does kind of have a point. Even his harshest critics will admit that. NATO isn't spending enough.
They were not paying. We were paying for, in my opinion, almost all of NATO.
The Arctic isn't secure.
If we don't take Greenland, Russia or China will. And I'm not letting that happen.
Uncontrolled immigration is a problem, and so on.
I declared a national emergency at our southern border.
But it's his methods that have made so many old friends of America so uneasy, so unsure of where they stand.
Pretty pop.
So why don't America's old friends push back, defend the values which the old America seemed to believe in? Why are they instead submitting to Trump's way? Well, that's the link to the second strand.
I'd like to see the chart if you have it.
Trump's tariffs and economic threats.
China, first row. China, European Union, they're very tough. Vietnam.
Because President Trump has harnessed America's economic clout, its global dominance, its place as the cornerstone of an international order built up over decades. And he's used it to remarkable effect.
I may put a tariff on countries if they don't go along with Greenland, because we need Greenland for national security, so I may do that.
Trump's ability to hold the world to ransom with his economic threats has worked. No one willing to criticize Trump. It shows just how reliant the whole world is on America.
It's been as extraordinary in economic terms as it has been in political terms.
Just because so many of the levers that Donald Trump's tried to pull, and they've been the kind of levers that
an American president hasn't pulled for kind of forever, really. The paradox is, it's been incredibly dramatic when it comes to the politics and the announcements, but it takes time for the economic effect of that actually to be felt.
So even though we're like a year in, the actual impact...
A lot of that impact hasn't been felt yet.
Or is it that the economists were wrong and that actually Trump was right?
Well, that's the thing is that that has not been definitively answered. And that's the problem.
When I was out in the States not long ago, the impression I got
was like a lot of businesses were still trying to work out how much they were actually having to pay in tariffs. And if you're still having to work that out now, at the bottom of the supply chain, then that will take months and months for it to be felt in people's pockets.
Trump's willingness to take risks is remarkable. Economically, politically, internationally and domestically, his risk threshold is astonishingly high. It's been a year of extraordinary upheaval domestically, in a nation already so polarized. The president has ripped up the rulebook. He proudly undermines institutions. He's put troops on the streets. Trump's America is a place where people are disappeared, pulled from their cars, questions asked later or not at all. But Trump's America is also a place where immigration is now under control. Here's the southern border before and now. This Trump administration is loyal, sycophantically so.
Thank you for your leadership.
Your fantastic leadership.
And with this loyalty, efficiency. He fully understands the levers of power, how to wield power, and with lieutenants who are as ideological as they are loyal.
You cannot defeat us, you cannot slow us, you cannot stop us.
But there's something else too, something that feels oddly un-American, even unbecoming, but it is happening. Trump branding the country he now runs on institutions that are supposed to be independent. His name literally chiseled into stone. He is bypassing Congress, upending norms. So there it is, his name slapped on the side of this cultural centre right in the heart of Washington, D.C. Yet another example of his cultural revolution, of the cult of personality he seems to enjoy. And you know, it often occurs to me, if all this was happening in another country, a faraway country, one that wasn't a friend, an ally, a country that we weren't in one way or another beholden to, would there be more of a universal outcry, more people willing to stand up and say, what on earth is going on? I think the answer is absolutely yes, there would.
Nothing that's going on is normal, is it?
This is a very different America and a very different world.
It's highly unusual, and I think that's been rammed home for me in Minneapolis.
The level of suspicion from people on the streets here,
You know, they're taking pictures of you in your car to check that you're not ICE agents. They're blowing their horns as soon as they see a car that they think is suspicious. They're whistling.
to warn people in the local community. And
It's just bizarre, you know, as one woman said to me, this doesn't feel like America in 2026. This feels like Nazi Germany in 1936.
What you're seeing there, you saw in LA.
Back in the summer, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a similar feeling here, and that is that Donald Trump is trying to stoke division, that by sending these ICE agents onto the street here and them using their aggressive tactics,
you know, deploying tear gas and flashbang devices all the time to break up the protests.
is similar to what happened in LA with the deployment of the National Guard against the wishes of local people. And when local government in LA and California were saying, we don't need the National Guard, why are you sending them here? The feeling is that this is all about trying to sow those seeds of division that are already so, you know, prominent here.
And so the fourth and final strand. Where does all this go? Well, it is the midterm year. In November, Americans will make their judgment on all this. But they'll do so in an environment so deeply charged and within a political system that both sides claim is rigged by the other.
You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached.
America's old friends have concluded, I think, that it is no longer a reliable ally. Trump isn't an anomaly. The direction of travel is clear. The revolution hard to undo. And America has new friends now, the monarchies of the Middle East, in business free-for-alls with Donald Trump, and the autocrats who are now being emboldened, happy with the disintegration of a world order they have long tried to pull down. Trump was right about everything. That's the tagline he likes to sport. So was he? Is he? Or is he actually an autocrat within a democratic system? Is history screaming at us, this is how it starts? Maybe a year isn't long enough to make that judgment, but it's certainly long enough for the world to have been turned upside down. Mark Stone, Sky News in Washington.
Amazing. This flock's hard at work growing their nest pensions, like this blue tit.
Dave?
Listen to the way they communicate.
Dave, you're on mute. No.
Incredible. Mr. Dove has a nest pension too.
Bon appetit.
He's one of 13 million people with Nest.
Peckish, sir?
Oh, home time. Nest. Together, we'll build you a bigger pension. Even you, Tina.
Yeah!